my video series, The Heroine's Journey. I'm Susanna Liller, and it's time to find your happiness. Today, we're going to talk more about virgins. And more specifically, we're going to talk about the virgin archetype as presented in Kim Hudson's book, The Virgin's Promise. And this is a two-part, this is the second part of a two-part video where the first part I explained to you about the Virgin's Promise, and we talked about it and how it was a pattern and an archetype. And this time, this second part, I'm going to invite you to look at how it is something that may be reflective of your very life, the pattern of your life. And I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't find things that you could relate to here. And also, I wanted to tell you that I am accompanying this with my blog as well. So my blog also was two parts. The first part about the Virgin's Promise, and the second part, which I'm doing in association with this second part video, is about how it can apply to your own life. So you can check out my blog and it will give you more information about it. So, as Christopher Vogler, the author of the Hero's Journey for Writers, the Writer's Journey, says the overall arc of this Virgin's Journey archetype is a journey from dependency to shining your own bright light. And I would like to think that that's my mission as a coach, to help women shine their own bright light. So 2 weeks ago, I talked about my discovery, and this was a new pattern for me, the Virgin's Promise archetype. I had read Kim Hudson's book, The Virgin's Promise, Writing Stories of Feminine, Creative, Spiritual, and Sexual Awakening. And as a coach, I use the journey archetype, and you would know this because this is all I talk about, to help real life women in their transformational journeys. And I coach them using the same pathways that their associated archetypes, the hero, the heroine, and now the virgin, use in their storylines. So I'm again hoping that you will be able to see for yourself, after I explain to you what this is about, how they're active in your life as well, even though you're a real life heroine, not a story heroine. And I, in fact, believe, as do other people, that there is power in these archetypes, that they live in our collective unconscious. They've been with us, we inherit them, they have energy, and which is why artists and story writers and movie makers use them to engage their audience even more, because it's so easy to relate. Again, Christopher Vogler, who wrote Mythic Structures for Writers based on the archetype of the hero's journey, says storytellers instinctively choose characters and relationships that resonate to the energy of these archetypes to create dramatic experiences that are recognizable to everyone. So when you watch Star Wars and you watch Game of Thrones and you read Harry Potter, and you recognize how they have so appealed to so many people, there are so many archetypes in these stories, and they are also heroes and heroines' journey stories. So Kim Hudson comes along, I find her book, and she discovers herself this Virgin's Promise structure. And it's really more of a feminine archetypal pattern than the hero's journey is. And that doesn't mean that one is better than the other. I believe that there's enough room for the hero's journey and the virgin's promise. And so she discovered this in taking a screenwriter's class, and this is what I talked about in my previous video. And what she feels is that, and I do as well, that it's been an archetype that's been dormant inside of us in our collective unconscious, that we've kind of pushed it down, and it's time now for it to wake up. And in her words, and you'll learn these different, what she calls points of the journey, of the Virgin's Promise journey, you'll learn these terms, but one is reorder the kingdom, and another, the kingdom will be brighter. And I believe that if in one woman at a time, this archetype is awakened, that yes, indeed, we'll reorder the kingdom and it will be brighter. And I think this is so much what we need now in this world, so we can enlighten this very currently dark world. So how do you unbury an archetype? Well, you educate, you teach about it, you talk about it. And again, it's been buried for years in our patriarchal society. It's time for us to avail ourselves of this model and see if the slipper fits. And back to Christopher Vogler. Suffice it to say, he says, that the overall arc of the Virgin's Promise is a journey from dependency to shining your own bright light. And light, he tells us, is a unifying metaphor in the framework that Hudson gives us. She writes, just as the Greek goddess Aphrodite was known for her radiance, the shining forth of an internal quality rather than any physical attribute, the shining forth of an internal quality rather than any physical attribute. The Virgin's beauty is often described in terms of light, such as shining, glowing, brilliant, dazzling, and iridescent. So in other words, the Virgin's beauty represents the shining forth of her soul. The Virgin's beauty represents the shining forth of her soul. And I have seen this in the journeys of the women that I coach, as they actually become what I call points of light. And the main reason that most women come to coach with me is that they are in some period of transition in their lives. And they could be leaving a marriage or starting a marriage, leaving a job or a career, beginning a career as an entrepreneur, some kind of transition, maybe to bring their art more into the world, to paint more, to actually want to display and sell it, or to write a book, or to be a writer. And I believe what prompts a heroine to look at this and give in to her long-term passion, which we have a tendency to put it on the back burner, is a nudge from within, of soul urging. I think it comes from our soul, and that's what leads the way. So these clues and longings and nudges, if we follow them, we will shine as we are meant to, and we are meant to shine. So what are these points or markers of the Virgin's Promise archetype path, as distinct from the hero or heroine's journey markers? And it's something that we can track. It's something that Kim Hudson actually was able to identify. And how did she do this? By studying all kinds of fairy tales and stories and screenplays and novels and all this writing about heroines and how they take their journey and what guides them. And she was able to trace these particular 13 markers. And a woman who teaches writing, Laurie Schnebley Campbell, has summarized these points in kind of a storytelling kind of way, which I'd like to read to you first, and then we'll go through the 13 markers. And also I'll be talking to you about how Cinderella, the story of Cinderella, explains a little more about it. And then I'm going to ask you to answer questions for how you and your life might relate to each of these 13 markers. So first, here's Laurie Campbell. The character's story opens in the number 1, dependent world. 2, where she's busy playing the price of conformity. But then along comes 3, the opportunity to shine. And as she tries on this new behavior, this shining behavior, she even, 4, dresses the part. It gets tricky, though, balancing her 5, secret world, with the dependent one, which soon, number 6, no longer fits her world. Only after she gets 7, caught shining, and can no longer be her old repressed self, does she finally, number 8, give up what gets her stuck, which results in such upheaval that she sees her 9, kingdom in chaos. No longer able to live her former life, she, 10, wanders in the wilderness, until at last she commits to 11, choosing her light, and becomes her true self, which means 12, reordering her world. So now at last the entire kingdom, 13, is brighter. So let's look at this now, and let me just explain each of the steps again, the points again. So the first one is dependent world, and this is where an external authority somehow provides for the virgin's existence. It could be a parent, it could be a culture, and she's busy paying the price of conformity to that dependent world. She has to suppress her true self because of the views of the people around her. So point number 2 is price of conformity, suppressing your true self. 3 is opportunity to shine. And some action happens that leads to the chance that a talent of hers is revealed somehow, or maybe her dream kind of peeks out, or her true nature. Number 4 is dresses the part. And this is some physical manifestation of bringing her authentic self to light. So it could be some physical something, or it could be, again, we get a different peek into who she really is, dresses the part. 5 is secret world. So it's a place where her dream can thrive. And at this stage, she still thinks she can please everyone, but she's allowing her dream, even in secret, to thrive. So she's added herself to the list of, oh, I want to please myself too. So this is a big step. That's secret world. But then number 6 is no longer fits her world. So the more she gives in to her true longing, her dream, her passion, and her secret world, she has become more empowered, sees her dream as a real potential, but now she can't keep a foot the way she used to in the dependent world and in the real world. So she's sort of pulled into. So just think about you and when you begin to dream and want something and what your passion is, but you're maintaining the old, but really the new is getting more and more exciting for you. How to juggle both. And then number 7, she gets caught shining. So reality hits, and somehow the Virgin needs to face that her two worlds are colliding and she can't do both at the same time. And her dream is no longer secret, and there are consequences, and it's rough for her as a result. And point number 8, gives up what gets her stuck. So finally, this is a major turning point of psychological growth where she makes a decision to give up some belief or something, behavior, that has been holding her back, holding her in that dependent world, and which results in more upheaval. And so then point number 9 is the kingdom is in chaos. And the Virgin realizes she does have to accept others' authority over her, and she doesn't have to accept others' authority over her, and she changes, and it creates a ripple effect and puts the kingdom in chaos. Number 10 is she wanders in the wilderness as a result. She's sort of thrown out. She's at a fork in the road. Should she go back and return to the dependent world, or should she make a new place for herself? And where would that be? She's being tested. Can she really commit to this part of herself, this real part of herself? Can she accept a world that wants her to be smaller than she really is? Such a question for all of us. Can she be a part of a world, accept a world that requires her to be smaller than who she really is? Step number 11, choosing her light. This is where she does choose to be who she is and accept her passion and trust herself and pursue her dream, her passion, no matter what. And she would rather shine as herself than be safe or keep the order of that dependent world. Number 12, reordering. So now the Virgin has moved from secretly claiming some personal authority to being authentic in all parts of her life. Her true value is recognized when she is fulfilling her dream, because fulfilling our dream, fulfilling your passion inside, is what gives you, dear heroine, full value. It's being who she is, and she's reconnected with a community in reordering. Number 13, the kingdom is brighter. As a result, the very last stage, the kingdom was thrown into chaos because of the Virgin's authentic nature and dream. But the kingdom is brighter and better off because of it. Things have reordered, and now they're better. So there's a gift to the kingdom from the Virgin because she has accepted her true self and her true value. And so others are empowered as a result. They know they can follow their dreams as well. There's a huge ripple effect. So it's interesting that for the heroine following this archetypal path, the greatest challenge isn't related, like in the hero's journey, to fighting big fears and dragons and big enemies in the world, but rather the challenge is presented by the relationships in her life that hold her independency. So possibly her coworkers, her boss, her friends, her parents, the kind of challenges that most of us face through our life that happen through our relationships. There is, again, from Laurie Campbell, the writer, she says, there's nothing wrong with books where all the excitement comes from criminals and dragons or movies. That's why the heroine's journey will probably never be essential to writers whose books focus solely on hardcore mystery and physical danger. Remember, she teaches writers how to write. But she says for novelists who care about what's going on inside, these 13 points are gold to a writer, because such a heroine is usually involved with other people who, often with the best and most loving intentions in the world, want her to stay where they think she belongs, rather than where she discovers she can truly become her best self. This is so important, because so often we are all trying to, not all, but we're trying to fit into what other people expect of us, instead of checking in with what do we want, and knowing that the voice inside of us knows best what's best for us. So now I want to see if this is something that helps inform you about your particular journey. So we'll go through these milestones and points and see if they're relevant to you. Maybe you're at one of these points right now. Have you been keeping your dream suppressed because of what people want around you, how they would react, what their expectations are of you? Have you been practicing your hidden talent in a secret world and not telling anybody, which keeps you in danger of being caught shining? Maybe it's time for you to throw the kingdom in chaos, for it to be reordered in a better way. Maybe you are ready to choose your light. And boy, if you are, it's going to help all of us. So the essence of the Virgin story is that she must follow her dream or authentic nature despite the wishes of others, even though they're the best wishes of others. The Virgin needs to undo that pleasing part of herself. Part of her, as a result, is lying dormant, and it's her journey that brings the dormant part into the light. So the Virgin's promise provides a pathway into that feminine archetypal journey, lying dormant in our collective unconscious. And think about it. Thousands and thousands of years ago, women were honored and respected in a way that they haven't been for thousands of years. They were the head of their tribe. They were the priestesses. They were so connected to the earth. They could bleed and not die. They could have produced new humans. They were thought of as magical and given an honored, revered place in cultures. And different tribes came with different kind of gods, and the masculine was honored above all else, and the feminine had to step aside. So of course, our feminine qualities and our feminine powers were just go to sleep. They were put on the back burner. So let's look at you. The Virgin is a person who is inexperienced and dependent. The story is one of empowerment. It's about her coming into being. Unlike the hero who leaves the comfort of his own ordinary world to test his mettle, and I have to say, we do that too. Women still have heroic journeys, and we want to test our mettle. But again, this is another piece. It's more internal, leaving our dependent self behind. And that's important because we're living in a world that tends to want to hold us back. And so we have to look at how do we bring out our true, authentic potential as a human being. So the Virgin story is how the Virgin empowers herself and thereby changes the world she's living in. She has to follow her dream, and despite what others want for her or for themselves. So I think this really sounds like you, heroine. The Virgin's highest purpose is to be authentic and to know joy and to be empowered, to be everything she's capable of. So let's see if you can tell your story using this model. But before we go there, I want to reacquaint you with something I've got to think you're very familiar with, and that's the story of Cinderella, and how Cinderella, her story follows along just to help you, again, get the steps a little more into your head. So Cinderella, step number one, dependent world. She's an orphan. She has the role of a servant. She's very dependent on her stepmother. 2, price of conformity. She has to do her stepmother's bidding. She feels like she's going to lose the roof over her head. And I think there's a part of her that feels like, well, maybe if she does it so well, her stepmother will love her and be nicer to her. And of course, her stepsisters, her mean stepsisters too. 3, opportunity to shine. Oh my gosh, there's an invitation. The prince is having a ball. It's an action that gives her an opportunity. Number 4, dresses the part. She begins to fix her mother's dress, gets it out of the old chest and starts working on it in order to go to the ball. And later, as we know, her fairy godmother gives her a magical dress, another opportunity to dress the part. 5, secret world. She dreams of the prince after she happens to meet him in the forest. And yes, I am using the Disney story, the Disney film, as I'm thinking about this. And I'm using Cinderella as I use the Wizard of Oz when I talk about the hero and heroine's journey, because I think it's a story most everybody knows. There's many movies that I could refer you to for the Virgin's Promise. And this one I know you've had to have watched if you can remember watching Cinderella. So secret world is step number 5. She dreams of the prince after she meets him and even thinks, oh, maybe I could be married to him. And she keeps fixing the dress up in the attic. Number 6, no longer fits her world. She begins to believe she has a right to go to the ball, and she continues to work on the dress, even though her stepmother piles up more and more work for her to do. 7, caught shining. It's the night of the ball, and she comes down the stairs and she's got the dress on, and of course, they destroy it, the sisters and the mother. They rip it up and they leave and go to the ball. But she was caught shining her real self in that dress while she still had it on. Number 8 is gives up what gets her stuck. Well, the fairy godmother steps in. She dresses the part again with this beautiful dress, magical dress. She dances with the prince. She's back in her secret world and begins to think, because they don't know who she is, but she begins to think, hey, I could be a princess. She's believing in herself. Major turning point. 9, the kingdom is in chaos. She leaves the ball at midnight. Her shoe falls off. The magic wears off. She's back in the dependent world, but the prince has fallen in love with her, and he throws the kingdom into chaos because he's trying to find her, and he goes everywhere with the slipper. 10, wanders in the wilderness. She's back in the kitchen, brushing the cinders, her life of servitude, and she allows herself to be locked away again in her room. She thinks she'll never get to try on that shoe. 11, choosing her light. She ends up defying her stepmother and asks to try on the shoe. Shows up, not in her beautiful ball gown, but in her Cinderella clothes. She is bringing herself into the light. Reordering, number 12. The shoe fits, the prince asks to marry her, she goes to live in the castle. 13, the kingdom is brighter. The evil characters are thwarted, sent out, and punished, and they must live in a world where Cinderella is a princess, not a servant. So that's how Cinderella fits into these 13 points. So let me just ask you some questions. Your story opens in the dependent world. Whom are you needing to please? Number 2, what's your price of conformity? What are you suppressing about yourself to fit in? 3, opportunity to shine. What did you do that shows who you really are? Number 4, dresses the part. What did you wear or try on or use or do that revealed your true self? Number 5, secret world. Where do you or did you practice being you? 6, no longer fits her world. What's the hardest for you as you're trying to appease both worlds? Not let on what your true passion is or what you've been trying to do, but staying one foot in each world. Caught shining, number 7. What slips out about your true identity that can't stay hidden? Are you coming down the stairs with your newly fashioned dress in some way? Are you showing that? Are you caught shining? 8, give up what gets her stuck. What did you finally let go of from the dependent world? And this is really the clincher. You have some fear or belief that you think you have is the way it is, and you give it up. What did you finally let go of from the dependent world? 9, kingdom in chaos. How did you throw your world off kilter by your changes? And as I read this to you, all I can think of is my first marriage and saying and telling my parents, my in-laws, my children, my husband at the time, I have to leave. Definitely kingdom in chaos. Number 10, wanders in the wilderness. Where did you go, or how was it for you after you accepted yourself and didn't try to hide it? 11, choosing her light. What did you commit to for the sake of your true self? 12, reordering. How has your community reoriented itself to the new you? And 13, kingdom is brighter. How is the kingdom better off because of your transformation? What were the ripple effects? What gifts has it received, the kingdom, because of what you've done? And when you answer this question, think about you in the dependent world and what that was like, and how your changes have affected everybody around you, and how the kingdom is indeed brighter. So, do you want to change the world? This is how it happens. Yes, you can go out and be more like the hero and externally try to make changes, and that's good. Changes happen that way all the time. But this is also a great way to change the world. You go within and you look at, how am I staying dependent? How am I going to let my light shine? How am I going to be more myself? Am I staying in my secret world? Is it time for me to let my light shine? I want you to choose your light. I want you to be as much yourself as you were created to be. Each one of us needs, and I'm so included in this, needs to release whatever dependencies we still have. I believe that this is what the world needs now, release of this feminine energy way back, so we're respecting it, and that others will respect it too. The kingdom will be brighter if we achieve that point of giving up what we are holding back and keeping us dependent. No more sweeping ashes in cinders like Cinderella in her dependent world. It's been our conditioning for, again, thousands of years to please that dependent world, but it's time for us together to do this, Heroine, to get free, to break free, to shine our light and be caught shining. I want to see you shining. So thank you for joining me today, listening, watching this video, and learning more about the Virgin's promise. I was going to say the heroine's promise, but the Virgin is a heroine too. It's just more of the internal part of her journey. So thank you for listening, and I hope you'll join me on my next video. And don't forget that you are a heroine, and you also are the archetype of the Virgin who's no longer going to be dormant anymore. Thank you.